Sophisticated algorithms to scrub incoming claims for any possible formatting error, missing modifier, or policy discrepancy.
So if a hospital submits a $50,000 surgical claim, and one code is slightly out of sequence according to that specific payer's rulebook.
The algorithm automatically kicks it back. The hospital gets nothing, and the cash remains on the payer's balance sheet instead of the hospital's.
The second point of failure listed is underpayments.
Yeah,
And this one almost seems more insidious because it can easily fly under the radar.
it happens all the time.
An underpayment happens when the payer agrees the care was necessary, they agree to pay, but they send less money than they actually owe the hospital based on their negotiated contracts.
Which happens constantly because of the sheer complexity of healthcare contracts.
Right.
A major hospital system might have contracts with dozens of different insurance providers, and each contract contains thousands of pages of specific fee schedules.
It's just a mountain of data.
Exactly. So if a hospital bills $8,000 for a procedure and the payer only remits $6,500, a struggling hospital's billing department, which is usually understaffed and dealing with millions of data points,
They might not even notice the discrepancy.
they don't. They just accept the payment, write off the rest, and assume it was correct. That is millions of dollars of earned value just leaking out of the system.
Wow. The third link in this broken chain is documentation gaps.
Yes.
And this goes back to the reality of the hospital floor. Physicians and nurses are focused on keeping people alive. Their primary language is clinical.
But the billing department needs everything translated into a highly rigid coding language.
Right. So if a doctor successfully treats a patient for severe acute heart failure, but in their hasty chart notes, they only write heart failure,
The coding team can only bill for the lower severity condition.
even though the hospital delivered high-complexity care and incurred high-complexity costs.
Because of a documentation gap, they're only reimbursed for low complexity care. The value is totally lost in translation.
And that leads to the fourth and final point of failure, slow appeals.
Right. When a claim is denied, the hospital doesn't just lose the money immediately. They have the right to appeal the decision and prove the care was necessary and coded correctly.
But insurance companies have strict ticking clocks on appeals.
Very strict. If a hospital's internal system for gathering the medical records, drafting the appeal, and resubmitting it is sluggish or reliant on outdated spreadsheets, they miss the window.
And the cash goes from being temporarily trapped to permanently lost.
While the hospital's day's cash on hand continues to plummet.
So the funnel isn't just constricted. The pipes are actively leaking and rusting shut.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
You have this massive reservoir of earned revenue waiting to flow into the hospital, but it's blocked by automated denials, drained by unnoticed underpayments, choked by bad documentation, and entirely bogged down by a slow appeals process.
That paints the picture perfectly. And it really underscores the profound shift in perspective that ClaimCalcPro is outlining.
Yeah.
The presentation uses an image of interlocking metallic gears to drive this point home, stating explicitly, this is a revenue cycle problem, not a demand problem.
Because the money wasn't stolen. The hospital didn't fail to earn it.
The local market didn't suddenly get healthier.
Right? The cash is simply trapped in the gears of a broken revenue cycle.
A hospital sitting at 50 days of cash doesn't need a new marketing campaign to attract more patients.
In fact, adding more patients to a broken revenue cycle just accelerates the burnout and the financial losses.
Exactly. What they desperately need is to fix the plumbing. They need the gears of their financial machinery to turn without friction.
So what does this all mean for actually fixing the pipe?
Yeah.
I mean, if we know the hospital's lifeblood is trapped by mechanical friction, how do you actually pick that bureaucratic lock? Because diagnosing the 4 points of failure is great, but getting the cash out of the payer's hands and into the hospital's public account before they hit that critical insolvency zone requires a massive operational overhaul.
It does. And because the problem is deeply mechanical, the solution has to be equally systematic. You can't just tell an overworked billing staff to work harder.
Right.
This is where the source details ClaimCalcPro's specific interventions. Their approach is to deploy technology and specialized workflows to directly attack those 4 points of failure.
So they go into the hospital's revenue cycle and systematically repair the broken links in the chain.
Yes. They aren't trying to change how the hospital practices medicine. They are entirely focused on optimizing the conversion of that medicine into cash.
Okay, so what are the exact 4 fixes?
First, they tackle the denials. Instead of having staff randomly work through a backlog of rejected claims, they use software to categorize and prioritize the denials.
So they identify exactly why the payer's algorithm kicked a claim back.
Right. Fix the root cause and systematically push the claim back through to release that trapped cash.
Makes sense.
Second, they capture the underpayments. They ingest all of the hospital's complex insurance contracts into a central database and automatically audit every single dollar that comes in against what the contract dictates.
So if an insurer shortchanges the hospital by $500 on a procedure, the system flags it immediately so it can be recovered.
Exactly, which plugs the leaks.
Okay, and for the third fix, they address the documentation gaps. This has to be done on the front end, right?
It does. They implement systems that prompt physicians or clinical documentation specialists to clarify the severity of a diagnosis before the claim is ever generated.
Oh, that's smart. It ensures the paperwork perfectly reflects the actual cost and complexity of the care provided, so the claim goes out clean and undeniable the first time.
You got it. And the fourth intervention is accelerating the payments.
By digitizing and streamlining the appeals process, they remove that sluggish manual friction.
Right. They ensure that when a denial does happen, the appeal is drafted, substantiated with the correct medical records, and fired back to the payer well before any deadlines expire.
So the entire velocity of the revenue cycle increases.
Exactly.
The source outlines the measurable outcomes of fixing these four gears, and it's striking.
It really is.
It's like watching a patient in critical condition suddenly stabilize. They list four major tangible changes. First, cash increases, obviously.
Right.
Second, write-offs decrease, which means the hospital stops just throwing its hands up and surrendering the money it rightfully earned.
Huge deal.
Third, overall liquidity improves, giving the hospital the flexible spending power to actually invest in new equipment or retain staff.
And ultimately, that vital survival metric, days cash on hand, improves.
Right. And the presentation doesn't just leave us with abstract promises.
No, the final visuals give us hard data points from a performance dashboard showing a hospital that has actually implemented these fixes.
Right. We see a system reaching a state of being 92% optimized.
And that mechanical optimization translates directly to the survival clock. The dashboard shows the system moving up to 52 days cash on hand.
Which is crucial because that pulls them out of that terrifying sub-50-day risk zone. It stops the bleeding and gives leadership breathing room.
It fundamentally changes the trajectory of the business. On that same performance dashboard, their overall liquidity strength is officially categorized as strong.
Wow.
They're no longer operating on the brink of financial collapse, and not because they found a new demographic of patients, but because they finally repaired the pipe that connects the care they deliver to the cash they need to survive.
It's an incredible turnaround. They stopped running faster on a broken treadmill and actually fixed the motor.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive. The presentation summarizes its core philosophy with a phrase that perfectly encapsulates this shift in mindset. Fix the conversion. Fix the cash.
Fix the conversion, fix the cash.
It strips away the illusion that top-line revenue is the ultimate indicator of financial health.
Right.
Earning the revenue is irrelevant if your internal systems cannot efficiently convert it into realized, accessible cash. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces a complete reevaluation of how large organizations measure success.
You have to look at the friction in your conversion process, not just the volume of your output. That concept is so powerful. And what strikes me as we wrap this up is that this isn't just a lesson for multi-billion-dollar health systems.
Oh, definitely not.
It scales all the way down to you, the listener, in your own life and career.
Yeah, 100%.
Whether you are running a small e-commerce business, doing freelance design work, or even just managing your personal household budget, the fundamental law of financial gravity is the exact same.
Earning the value isn't enough.
Right. Doing the hard work and generating the value is only half the battle. If your client invoices are constantly sitting in limbo, if your payment terms are perpetually delayed, or if you aren't diligently tracking the expenses leaking out of your budget, you don't have a revenue problem.
You're the cash access problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Value created is entirely useless if it remains trapped in the system. You have to build a clean, frictionless process to actually realize the value of your labor.
The scale might be different, but the mechanics are identical. A bottleneck in your personal revenue cycle will drain your reserves just as quickly as a bottleneck in a hospital's billing department.
Which leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on long after this deep dive is over.
Yeah.
We've just explored how easy it is for an essential, high-demand enterprise to nearly bankrupt itself simply because of bad bureaucratic plumbing.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. So if a massive multi-billion-dollar health system can have its lifeblood trapped in bureaucratic limbo just because of documentation gaps and slow appeals, what hidden denials or underpayments are trapping the earned value in your own career or business right now?